can just speak. I'll adjust everything to your voice. If anybody else does come up, I'll adjust everything to them as well. So you don't need to worry about adjusting. Once I see everybody seated, I'll give you the thumbs up.
Just a little bit. Yeah.
Bye bye. I think this will help. Like it. What's wrong with those? Christmas so hard to repeat on herself. No, the lever doesn't work.
You might fix it.
Oh. Oh. You see the button here. What's the well? Okay. Only this one. Okay, sir. Me. Hey. Put that in, yeah. I hear something. That was Pepper.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kevin Mahan. I'm one of the pastors at LCBC Church, and it's an honor for me to come today and be asked by the family to help conduct this service in Tyler's memory. I want to say, Layla, thanks for the entertainment already. And anytime, man, I think Tyler would have really enjoyed just being ourselves today. And so in memory of him, we're going to tell some goofy stories. We're going to share some memories. And ultimately, if we don't laugh today, I don't think Tyler would have enjoyed it either. And so, but we also come to this moment with a lot of grief. In the last moments of life, what we do is we gather together with one another and we share about each other. We talk about what sticks with us. We talk about what matters. And ultimately, Matt, Elizabeth, Alex, and Ashton, they shared a bunch of things with me about matters with Tyler. And I'll be saying some of those, but I'm also going to ask for your help. You guys each knew Tyler in a different way. You knew different stories. Some maybe not always appropriate for right now, but it's certainly funny. And Tyler was a great friend, and he was a helpful individual, and certainly, and we want you to help share stories about him too. In a moment, I'll give you the opportunity to stand up and do that for where you're at. But today, I just remind you, we support one another. We're coming together in our grief, but ultimately, there's really no sense to make to this tragedy. In these moments, quick answers and cliches don't really help. So you're not going to get that today. But what we are going to do is help continue to make his memory live on. It's funny, when we try to understand why we come to these things, we often come to feel something, right? To feel like we paid our respects, to feel like we supported the family, to feel Tyler's real presence again, to feel something. And so I'll just encourage you, whatever you're feeling today, man, feel that. Be in the place you're at and meet Tyler there too. Because grief is a strange thing. It's like a cut on your finger. Ultimately, it goes numb before it starts bleeding. You might be in that numb spot. You might be bleeding. And then it bleeds before it hurts. It starts hurting again before it heals. It forms a scab, gets irritated, and that comes off. And sometimes it goes back and forth and begins to bleed again. But ultimately, grief is the deepest wound you'll ever experience. Much like a cut on your finger that scabs over, it's going to leave a scar there forever. And that scar is Tyler's indelible influence on your life and your life on his. And so we look at that and say, grief is this funny thing that goes back and forth. And so wherever you're at today, whatever you feel, wherever you're grieving, it doesn't have to be like everybody else, but it's your story and your journey. So be right there. On behalf of the family, I personally want to thank each and one of you for coming and paying your respects. I know it means a ton to them to see each of you here. And so thank you for making the time to be here. As we get started, I'm going to go to God in prayer right now, asking him for an extra measure of grace and comfort for us. Feel free to sit quietly in your seat or pray along with me. Heavenly Father, come to you now, ask for your individual comfort and peace on each person here, knowing that, God, we need your help. We need your help to make sense of our feelings, to make sense of why you would let something like this happen, God. And we need your help right now to understand what to do next and how to keep Tyler's story alive. And so as we share memories and feelings and thoughts, God, I pray that you will just be a presence in the room today. And God, thanks for being with Tyler every moment of his life until the very end. And we love you in your name. Amen. Tyler Jacob Fischer, 24 of Elizabethtown, passed away on Saturday, January 22nd, 2022. He was born in Lancaster, the son of Matt and Elizabeth, also surviving his girlfriend Haley and his daughter Layla, two brothers Alex and Ashton, paternal grandparents Carol Fry and Ronald Fisher, husband of Darlene, many other aunts, uncles, nieces, and nephews. Tyler was a graduate of Elizabethtown Area High School, class of 2016. He was a selfless, a funny, outgoing individual who always put a smile on your face. He enjoyed cars, video games, most of all spending time with his family, especially with his daughter. And some of the stories I want to try to reiterate to you right now, the family shared with me, really on three simple things. Tyler was a really simple guy. It took simple things to make him happy, like spaghetti and pumpkin pie. Right? It took simple things to make him smile, like when Matt would bring home a whole case of frozen pumpkin pies, and he'd put those away, and it'd be late night snacking and all the things that Tyler would do, eating those things frozen, they'd be gone in a week. And happy as could be about the pumpkin pie that was always ready for him. He loved playing Minecraft with Layla, even yelling at the lagging internet. Right? Together, they would be angry together. He was a simple guy. Fast internet, something fun to do with his daughter. He was happy. Brothers told a story one time about Tyler finding a rabbit in the backyard, and he wanted to keep this rabbit as his pet. He was really excited about this. He brought the rabbit inside, tried to keep it alive. No way. It died shortly thereafter, but Tyler was so simple. He thought, man, I got to do what's right. This thing, I got to bury it in the backyard. So he gathered the family together and hosted a funeral for his brand new rabbit in the backyard. But he's a simple guy, but we don't mean that insultingly at all. We mean that he was direct and that he loved what he loved and he was who he was. And because he was simple like that, man, he was easy to friend. That was the second thing. I said Tyler was a friendly and a social guy. He made a friend everywhere he went. He would pull people together. He would find ways to be friendly, even if that was at your expense. And ultimately, he would make others participate in what he was doing by being the first in to dance, by being the first in to do something, to be goofy, to make you feel comfortable, to lean in with him too. Elizabeth actually told a great story that she got a text from somebody that she didn't even know, how Tyler was so kind and friendly to other people. he would go and do yard work at somebody else's house that she didn't even know he knew, just because he was helping out. And so little things like that Tyler did to be friendly and social. His brothers remember that they had a house where all the friends wanted to come and play. Found weekends playing Call of Duty, snacks always flowing, Guitar Hero going on in the basement, all the friends in the basement growing up together. And that was a warm memory for them. Matt mentioned that their house was a hangout spot for friends because of the pool, because of all the games and all the fun. And you can see that a lot of head nods in the room. Many of you guys were probably there in the basement playing along. Lastly, one of the things about Matt that everybody recognized was he was goofy. And he could do things. He was silly and outgoing. And he wanted to make people smile. I think especially in this moment, he would want to make you all smile. He would want this moment to tell something that would alleviate you from the pain for just a couple seconds and remember how fun life can be. And so Tyler was that guy, especially if he saw pain in your face, that he would try to replace with a smile. Alex mentioned that dropping his daughter off at his parents' house, he would often come in, drop her off, and Tyler would just pop downstairs really quick with Alex, say a couple off-color jokes, maybe a couple things, mess with him, little goofy things, and head back on upstairs. He was always recognizing that I can help other people by being goofy here. The three boys decided one day to spray paint the basement. They were young. Anybody know this story? And they got a spray paint. They went downstairs in that closed off room and started spray painting like crazy. To the point where Elizabeth was upstairs thinking, I don't feel well up here. What are they doing down there? But eventually went down there. Of course, they don't have face masks on or anything else. Found the boys, making that room to be what they wanted to be because it was theirs. So a lot of things he decided to do that weren't always maybe the smartest, but they're always fun. Back in 2011, Elizabeth also told a story about when the flooding was all happening here, Elizabethtown in the area. She called home and said, hey, is everybody home? It's taking her a while to get back through the flooding to get back home. Tyler said, yeah, we're doing good, but I'm going to go out to the river that's flooded with my boogie board with some friends right now. Not understanding the dangers by any means, but just ready to go have some fun because it was in front of him. And lastly, family just mentioned how Layla is such a carbon copy of Tyler. How watching her do what she does. That's your seat, girl. Such a carbon copy of making people have fun, smile, and just enjoying that with him. So Tyler, he was a simple guy. He was a social guy, a lot of friends. He was a little bit goofy. But man, he was a good friend. And so these are some of their stories in a hard week to recall. And we hope you have some of your own stories too. And I'm going to ask you to do something that could be a little challenging, but do it for behalf of the family. I'm going to ask you, a couple of you guys, to stand up, share either a memory or a funny story like these. You could also say what Tyler meant to you in a brief couple of words. The reason we gathered together is to do this both for the family and for yourselves, that we could share and keep his memory alive. So Carlton, I'm going to ask you if you'd stand where you are and go first. And then have.
All right. I'm Carlton. I'm one of his many friends that gravitated towards his infectious personality. He's not trying to be weird. First white friend I've ever had. First person I ever met. He was walking around with Bradley. Had a football on him ever since we've been attached to the hip. So I've been thinking about this since I heard the news. I'm not going to share what was great about him. We've done enough of that. We all know. So what comes to my mind is like the imperfections. Like he wasn't very big on materials. Simple guy. He walked around for months with shoes that were literally half of it ripped off. Would walk around with that and would not listen to anybody about shopping. Everyone knows he was a terrible person to eat with. With his mouth open.
Oh my.
Yes. And he just didn't care. He was very carefree. He did whatever he wanted. Granted, yeah, we used to always, because he was the youngest in our friend group, we used to always bust his nuts. Sorry about anything and everything. And the one I used to give him hell for was that he had the hairiest butt that I've ever had. We used to give him that boy all the time. And, he shaved it one day. And so he went a week and just scratching. And I was like, man, that's not even good for me in class, man. But yeah, back to the point, all of these imperfections really made him a perfect human being. I know perfect's a big word, but I've never had any problem with Tyler. And I'm sure no one else has. He's just the sweetest person. So if you haven't known Tyler, I really do hope that you guys do come across someone like Tyler, because he'll change your life, and whoever it is.
Thank
I
you.
got to say.
Thank you.
No, my fair.
Couple anybody else from an extended family or any other friends that want to share what Tyler meant to you?
Okay, so I'm Haley's best friend, and Fischer was one of my best friends as well. It got to the point where like Haley would be at work and he'd come over and bring Layla to play with Carson until Haley would get off. Or if I had car calls, he would be the one I would call. The one time I was downstairs and I heard something in my room. I heard something chirping, and I went upstairs and a bird flew by my head. I was like, I don't know who to call other than Fischer. Like, he's the person that came to mind. And so I called him, and Haley was like, I heard her in the background, just go take care of it. Like, go get that bird out of her house. And he was running around upstairs my house trying to catch this bird for like an hour. But like, if we needed him, he would be there. And like, one time I was in a car accident, and he was the person I called after it, and he was there for me. Like, he was one of the most special people I knew. And like, even at the end with him and Haley, like, some of the things that were going on, like, we all still, like, it was like family. Like, as a friend, like, he was one of my best friends. And for my son, like, he was the only man in my kid's life. Like, Carson loved him. Like, he would walk in the door and Carson would run right up to him. I know. But he was a really awesome person to be around. And he was a great dad to Layla. There's just no one like him.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm Tyler's cousin. And I don't really have any specific memories of Tyler. Like, you know, we grew up together, so like there's a million memories, like just us running around the house, hanging out in the backyard. My stepmom mentioned that he loved their dog growing up. And the second he came into my dad's apartment, the dog would run over and start hugging him. But yeah, so there's like a million memories like that. But what I remember most is the feelings. I remember excitement when my Aunt Itzy was pregnant with him. I remember being so annoyed because he's 7 years younger than me. So, you know, he's a kid and I'm like, oh my God, you're the most obnoxious person ever. But I also remember just happiness. He was always the happiest person in the room. He wanted everyone to be happy too. So affectionate. I remember him and Alex being just best buds. Ashton too. The three of them just always attached to each other. Just besties.
And always breaking stuff.
Always breaking stuff.
Being boys.
Yeah. So I'm always gonna remember him with a smile. I don't know if anyone else has this phenomenon that knows him from when he was young, but I still picture child Tyler with a beard.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Make room for one last one if there's somebody else. Thank you guys for sharing. Thank you guys for sharing. And our remaining time together, I want to give you some encouragement. I think you guys are doing exactly what you need to do together as people. Keep sharing stories. I'm going to encourage you later today, too, to keep sharing stories and keeping Tyler's memory alive. When we experience a tragedy like sudden death, you wrestle with what to do because there's really unanswerable questions like, why us? Why him? Is that even fair? And what's the purpose of all this? And unfortunately, these questions will probably go unanswered for some length of time, if not forever. They're unanswered because our bodies are flawed. Things happen. Negative consequences happen from our decisions. And ultimately, death happens because it's wreaking havoc in us all. We're all headed that direction. The tragedy is the phenomenon of death is permanent. And so we really are left with questions that are a little different, like, well, what happens now? What happens after death? And how do we move forward as people? One important question that does often get answered is that one. What's left? And what do we do? And the writer David says it this way in Psalm 103. He uses a metaphor to talk about what's left. He says this: as a father shows compassion to his children, so God shows compassion to those of us. For he knows our frames. He knows our bodies. He remembers that we are dust. And for man, we are like grass of the field. It flourishes for a little bit, and then it's gone. In its place, it knows it no more. But the steadfast love of the Lord is from understanding past to understanding future for those who fear him, and his righteousness to his children's children. In this poem, David really says, listen, in the whole timeline of life, our little existence is such a small piece of it, and yet it's so meaningful. What's left afterwards is the steadfast love of God and his compassion to us in these moments where we don't have all the answers. And so it's interesting that what's left is relationships. What's left between you and God at this point is a relationship. What's left between you and Tyler right now is the influence he's made on your life and your relationship. And so you might find it surprising that you can actually continue to grow your relationship with Tyler right now. Even though he may be gone, we can look and say what's left is how we continue to interact with him. And so for the rest of our time, I want to give you 4 simple phrases. I hope these are helpful to you. It's just 11 words, so it's pretty easy to memorize, where we can grow in our relationship with somebody even when they're gone. These phrases come from a man named Ira Byock. He was a palliative care doctor, so hospice doctor, and he walked with lots of people through the end of life and recognized that these 4 phrases are what we all share at the end of life. And in fact, you can share them with somebody even after life as well. And so here's the 4 phrases. Please forgive me. I forgive you. Thank you. And I love you. 4 phrases, only 11 words. Ready? Please forgive me. I forgive you. Thank you. And I love you. So I want to challenge you to do this right here. Look at a picture of Tyler. Look at around you. And I want you to repeat these out loud as I say them too. Okay? Please forgive me. I forgive you. Thank you. And I love you. The connection as you connect with Tyler, as you say those phrases, continues to grow your relationship with somebody so vitally important to you. Let's talk about them one by one. Okay. Please forgive me and I forgive you. We all know the tragic events that ended Tyler's life that don't feel fair, that we want to change, that we want to go back and change the past. We want to do something different. And maybe it's the last visit you had with him. Maybe it was the last conversation you had. Maybe it's how you interacted. Something's happened in our life where we all look back and we wish we could change the past. And so when we think of please forgive me and I forgive you, we've got to reconcile with a couple thoughts. First, we have to recognize that nobody's perfect, including you and me. Right? We've never done it perfect. And ultimately, there's regrettable moments we wish we would have handled differently in all of our times. Because we're fallible human beings, we make mistakes and we fall apart. But we got to recognize one really important fact, that we are worthy of love and acceptance, even in our imperfections. Carlton, I think you shared it perfectly. Some of the imperfections draw us closer to one another. And when we recognize not only other people, but we ourselves are worthy of that love, we can start saying words that are powerful, like, please forgive me and I forgive you, because we recognize, hey, I've made some mistakes as well. Okay. The interesting thing, Jesus summarizes it this way. He says, love your neighbor as yourself. That we could love ourselves as we love each other. And oftentimes that's the hardest thing for a lot of us, to love ourselves in our own imperfections. And so when we say, please forgive me, we're actually saying, I want to make this right. And it's okay that I've made mistakes in my path. We say, I forgive you. We look at them and say, you're not only the worst things in your life, you're also the good things in your life. And I forgive you for those things, remembering what is left. Some of us have the understanding of forgiveness that I want to help shape a little differently today. If you've ever heard the word forgive and forget, you ever heard that phrase? Forget it. Right? It's not possible, right? You can't forget things that have happened to you that shaped who you are. And so the words forgive and forget aren't helpful. In fact, it's often denying that that person made an influence on my life, even through some of the negative, imperfect things. And so instead, for the word forgiveness, I don't want you to forget Tyler's influence in your life. Instead, I want you to replace it with a different definition of forgiveness. Better definition is the one we find in the Bible. Forgiveness is this. Ready? Forgiveness is giving up on a hope that the past will ever be different, and giving up on making the people of your past pay a price still for what they've done. So forgiveness is letting people pay that price in full and then walking ahead with them. So you can't forgive and forget. You can stop making other people pay the price for the wrongs. You can stop trying to pay the price yourself for the things you wish you would have done different. And so when we look at Tyler and we say, please forgive me, I forgive you, it's recognizing that you influenced each other and that things can be right again between you all. The third phrase, thank you. Thank you is often one of the most powerful things we do for one another. Tyler had a way with people, and there's probably some things that you can say thank you to him for just being who he was in your life. And the fact that life is short, we need the reminder to reflect and appreciate on the positive things people have done for us. As we've done that today, we're marking these moments with gratitude. Gratitude is a powerful bond. As you say thank you to Tyler for all he's done in your life, then you connect with him again, even after death, to recognize the influence he had in your life. Primarily, it's the need to be seen, to be grateful. When we see and express our gratitude, our relationships grow with one another. And so I don't know what you're grateful for from Tyler's life today, but if you haven't told him yet, if you haven't told him what you appreciate about him, you can do that yourselves. Focus on the way he's impacted you. And in that phrase, thank you, will bond you together with him again. Then lastly, I love you. Man, there's many ways to communicate love. Some of them aren't really comfortable. But ultimately, we can communicate love in a lot of different ways. Saying the actual words, expressing love in the way we do things, like taking care of your car, or expressing love in a letter or a video you have of him that you've saved, or just our silent times together. Love is always present in these subtle ways too, not just in saying the words, I love you. Love protects. Love hopes for good things. Love perseveres, and love trusts one another. And above all, love is a choice to commit to one another's best interest. And you think about it this way. I love movies. I'm sure you do too. You have your favorite movie. Think about your favorite movie with a love story in it right now. Think about your favorite movie. For me, it's always going to be classic Braveheart. I go back and I watch William Wallace take on for love of his country, love of his woman, and love of a greater cause bigger than himself. And what love really is leaving some skin in the game. Love cost us something. Every great love story cost the person something. It cost William his whole life. But if you really love somebody, it's going to cost you something, because it's a sacrifice that you give for somebody else's benefit, not just taking from them. And so when we say, I love you, we look at Tyler and say, I love you, we're reminded the sacrifices we made for him. Remember the sacrifices he made for you, because that's real love. That's the love we tell stories about and write movies about. Love that cost us something. We left some skin in the game. So these four phrases have power. Right? They have power to soothe hurt, to seek healing, and deeply connect us with our relationships, even with those that are gone. And so last time we say these phrases, please forgive me, Tyler. I forgive you. Thank you. And I love you. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say one more thing about these four life-changing phrases, and it's this. Man, our world was designed. It's no surprise to you that there's incredible purpose and beauty in our world, but those things break. Our purpose falls on deaf ears. And ultimately, there's a reason behind that. It's because sin entered our world and broke our relationships and fractured our relationships. We've all participated in sin and doing things not perfectly. And we recognize that's a rejection against a perfect God who made us and gave us that purpose. And so the decay is everywhere around us in our life. Ultimately, we long for relationships to be reunited, to be rescued from the brokenness and brought back into whole living. And that's why God sent his son Jesus to the earth on our behalf. He lived a perfect life and yet died for us. He paid the consequences of our rejection, and he became our rescuer. When Jesus rose again, he defeated death and created a bridge to new life with him. And so his real love sacrifice changed everything about our lives. With his life, Jesus gave himself for our life. And I don't know where you're at in your spiritual beliefs. I don't know where you're at in your spiritual life. And yet I want to give you hope that those big questions about what happens next, what happens after death, there are answers to that, but they're not always found in what we want. They're often found in a relationship. And so this relationship we have horizontally, please forgive me, I forgive you, thank you, love you. It's the same thing vertically with God that reunites that relationship for new life. He sent his son here saying, I love you. He put some skin in the game, sacrifice for us. Proper response is, thank you, God, for that. He says, I forgive you. What we say back to him to be reunited with him as our rescuer is, please forgive me. I've done some wrong things and I need you. And so it's those same 4 phrases that connect us vertically with God that connect us horizontally with each other. I love you. Thank you. Please forgive me. I forgive you. I know this story of Jesus' rescue plan tells us that we can have new life right now. And so I don't know who you need to talk to today with these phrases, whether it's Tyler or Jesus for new life, but it's the same 4 things. Ultimately, man, I want to conclude today by sharing a brief poem I think that summarizes really Tyler's life well. This is a poem called The Journey of My Life by Tagore. It was beautiful as long as it lasted, the journey of my life. I have no regrets whatsoever, save the pain I'll leave behind. Those dear hearts who love and care, and the strings pulling at the heart and our souls, the strong arms that held me up, the friends who I used their strength, who never let me down. At every turning of my life, I came across good friends, friends who stood by me, even when time raced by me. So farewell, farewell, my friends. I smile and bid you goodbye. No shed, no tears, for I need them not. All I need is your smile. If you feel sad, do think of me, for that's what I'll like. When you live in the hearts of those you love, remember then, you never die. In closing, I don't know the last few moments of Tyler's time on earth were like what they gave us due, but I do know that because God is close to each one of us in our grief, he was not alone and God was close by. Would you guys pray with me? God, thank you for the moments today to celebrate a life well lived. God, for an imperfect life, for a friendly companion. God, for somebody like Tyler, to know on this journey of life, to be encouraged by, to smile with, to laugh with. God, we are better because of knowing Tyler. And the friends and family in this room, God, acknowledge that today. And so would you help them deal with their grief in a way that only you can? Would you help them make sense of the questions they don't have answers to? And ultimately, God, unite them to Tyler's heart and to yours through those 4 simple phrases, knowing that you're a God who can be trusted even with our deepest questions. We love you, God, and thank you. In your name, amen. Thanks again for coming. I'm going to ask Andy to come and give us final instructions.
Ladies and gentlemen, this does conclude our services here at the funeral home today. We'd like to thank Pastor Mahan for his services and all of you for your attendance. At this time, we'll start on this side of the room and dismiss, and then from the back forward. If you'd like to come up and have a final moment with the family or a moment of reflection, you may do so. Then we ask that you exit to your vehicles so the family can have a few moments to themselves. Thank you.